I am indeed one of the lucky classic car owners who found a car that is indeed truly the ultimate. So the car will fits absolutely perfectly like a tailor-made shoe, indeed. The Jaguar E was actually like a toy car from my childhood. And for me, it truly embodies the classic sports car of the 60s. Its design has a touch of elegance, a bit sophisticated as well. A bit of naughtiness also comes into play. And this mix, that's what makes it. When I bought the vehicle, I was very young. I bought it back in 1981 as a young student, and I absolutely did everything wrong that you can indeed do wrong when buying a classic car. Bought with a lot of passion and enthusiasm, bought with the eye, and truly slipped into all the traps as one often does. The vehicle had the classic rust spots and needed to be completely restored. The clutch was oily, meaning the engine had to come out, the transmission, everything out. The result was an almost 4-year interruption in the use of this vehicle. I had to get a hood from Northern England, and it had to be dismantled there, and then we transported it home on the roof rack of our little R4S. I had to learn how to weld. I had to learn how to handle mechanics. But thankfully, I didn't make the mistake of wanting to do everything myself from the start. I handed the engine over to a friend who is a specialist. I didn't do the painting myself either. And I also left the main welding work to a professional. But I did a lot of the auxiliary work myself, overhauled the rear axle myself, and refurbished all the small parts. I worked on it for 4 years, made many mistakes, had to do many things, twice and thrice, disassemble and reassemble again. So I went through the ordeal that a classic car enthusiast must endure, who can't just restore it with a check. Just like that. And I regret none of it. Of course, I would do some things differently today, but you engage with the vehicle in a completely different way. When you feel like you have, well, not every screw, but had very many screws of this vehicle in your hand, you know all the nooks and crannies, then the vehicle becomes a very, very personal vehicle. Even if certain solutions today would no longer be preferred, you also have to cope with life, with all its own shortcomings, and it's exactly the same with the vehicle. When you look at the cockpit of the Jaguar E-Type, you see no exaggeration there. There are no gimmicks in it, no extra decorative parts or anything like that. Instead, the cockpit actually looks like the cockpit of a military aircraft from the 1940s, 1950s. It appears very sober, yet the accents, this wooden steering wheel, the leather seats, it all seems very coherent. For me, it is quite astonishing, for example, that this vehicle's exterior appearance and the driving experience you can have with the vehicle blend together so harmoniously. There are vehicles that almost look faster than they actually drive, for instance. And then, of course, there is the opposite case. And with the V-Type, I always feel that everything is coherent within itself. This bodywork, which suggests that it slips through the wind, gives you exactly that feeling when you drive the car. It accelerates with ease. It is a very refined car and actually appears quite modern from today's perspective. So I would compare a drive with the Jaguar E through the landscape more like this to a ride on a flying carpet. It absorbs bumps very softly, and due to the large engine, the torque is naturally very strong, and that means the car never feels rushed. So if you compare it with more race-oriented sports cars from the 60s, where you have to shift a lot and always reach an RPM where the maximum power is available, that certainly is fun. For me personally, it's more about this torque giant that you can just let glide. The landscape glides by, but there's always enough power to quickly sprint away if needed. And the whole experience is accompanied by a wonderful engine sound. It's a pure 6-cylinder engine, and because it has quite a large displacement, it's not a aggressive screeching like you might get with a smaller engine, but rather a very sonorous sound, full-bodied. Then mates, of course, through the front firewall, which isn't as perfectly sealed as in modern vehicles. There's always an additional scent. The transmission tunnel extends far into the passenger compartment, meaning you can feel on your thigh that the thing is slowly getting very, very warm. In the summer, it can become quite uncomfortable because the cabin heats up a lot. And with the temperature, the scents of engine oil and a bit of transmission oil come along, and that mixes with the warming seat leather. It appeals to all the senses. That's certainly the case with any older vehicle. It's part of the enjoyment of driving a classic car. This specific blend that the E-Type has, it really captivated me. I still feel in the E-Type just like I did almost 40 years ago. So there's a certain excitement when you take it out of the garage for the first time in spring. You drive the first few kilometers with your ears wide open, listening for any noises to ensure everything is running smoothly, and it takes a while. Just a week or two until you get used to it again and can simply drive freely. There are many classic car enthusiasts who love to attend club meetings or even classic car rallies. I never liked that myself. I avoid such meetings. And also find it difficult to drive my own vehicle to an event. I've always driven the Jaguar, alone since my student days. I very rarely have a passenger with me. My vehicle is painted in Sherwood Forest Green, which is a very, very dark green. And this color looks the best in the shade. Since it's a coupe and the interior heats up significantly, the ideal driving time was either early in the morning or late in the evening. For me, the ultimate experience is actually a drive during the blue hour, when the sun sets and those blue tones appear, and then all the reflections appear on the long hood. You can see the contours of the design. Both windows rolled down. As mentioned, the car heats up quite a bit. You then hear the engine noise and drive alone through the French part of Switzerland. That is an incredible feeling for me, an incredible driving experience. This roaring sound of the engine you hear, and then those smells I've already described, then the driving behavior of the vehicle, which would be able to quickly leap away from a standstill at any time, but also allows itself to move swiftly and smoothly through the landscape without any rush. And in that respect, it's simply something that still excites me today as much as it did almost 40 years ago.